Hey everyone, my name is Maurits, Chronicler, Meeusen, caster for the LCK, and these are my milestones. That's a good flex. You say we're about to wrap up, and then you ask me a question that takes 20 minutes. Well, don't put the focus on it like that. I would say that's the first milestone if I had to kind of categorize the steps that I took to get to the LCK would be my early uni years. I was a aggressive StarCraft 2 fan, which is also the reason why my degree took longer than it should have. During uni, I had the opportunity to do an exchange year, which also made me dodge having to write a bachelor thesis, so that was great. And I went to Korea, lived in Seoul, studied at Yonsei Law School for half a year. And there I also had the opportunity to visit the OGN studios at the time and watch the LCK from up close, which blew my mind. And I think kind of solidified for me the whole period that I really wanted to do something with esports, because I've been passionate about it since forever. I think I played my first video games when I was like 4 or 5 years old, with like the Pokemon Blues and whatnot. Ever since World of Warcraft and StarCraft as well, like I'd gone really into competitive gaming. Initially StarCraft, later League of Legends really solidified that I wanted to do more with it instead of just playing, because that's what I did up until that point, right? It was like I was like 21, 22 before I realized I actually don't want to just play, because it's getting kind of old, right? It doesn't stay fun forever to not do anything more productive, if that makes sense. And that brings us to when I came back from Korea, which is the first shows and the creation of TSEA Link. And Link is also named after Legend of Zelda for any attentive viewer. That was the association, I think is the best way, like a student association. I founded after coming back from Korea because I wanted to do more together with a close friend of mine, Jos Buivoet. We set up, because there was nothing of the sorts, there was no attention to esports. Esports also historically wasn't that relevant in the Netherlands. We've had great individual players, people like Robbie, Rotterdam, from Warcraft and StarCraft respectively. And there's one-offs, but as a whole, the culture didn't really live. So initially, everyone laughed at us, which we welcomed because we kind of expected that, right? Because we also profiled ourselves as a sports association. And that's also when I got into casting as a hobby. Previously, I have done the competitive debating, so like in a uni setting, and not that I was very good, but I did it as a hobby. And I'd also done other stuff like play shows with a band that I was in for years, and all that kind of solidified that I'd really like to be involved with esports shows. And initially, it was just as an interviewer. I went to a LAN in, I think 2016 was the first one, the Reality, which is a LAN in the northern part of the Netherlands. It blew my mind. It was so much fun. Just sitting there, on the couch, shoving a microphone in people's faces and making fun of them making fun of me. Is pretty much what you're looking for. And that period took a long time. And it was not until 2 years later that I really moved on from doing it as more as a hobby. I did a lot more different games then as well. I did Overwatch for the Newell, everything that kind of floated my way I took. Overwatch shows with Jake Matthews, who I'm sure you'll know if you're familiar with the NLC. But we met each other doing Overwatch in like 2016, 2017, which to me still is feels very funny. So that was a 2-year period where I just did as much as I could, pretty much exclusively unpaid work naturally, because that's just kind of how it goes when you start out with any hobby. But it's necessary as well, because it kind of prepares you for what came next. Going freelance. And that was a really big step for me, because it basically meant that I graduated in 2018. And I got my master's in law, and it kind of has an expiration date. If you don't do something with it in I think the next 1-2 years, your chances of finding a job tank astronomically. So I said, we're gonna give it a go for half a year, maybe a year if it kind of speeds up. in conjunction to that, I didn't just graduate, I also moved to London to be with my girlfriend at the time, who was going to do a master's there. And I was like, I graduated, right? I know that the league scene is a lot bigger, and we just went for it, or I just went for it rather. 2-3 months after I moved to London, I got an offer to do not full-time, but like a pretty intensive show for ESL, was ESL Proximus at the time, which also involved me, you know, being in the studio. So these were like my first really big studio shows where I was getting, not flown out, I prefer the train for a myriad of reasons, but having to commute back and forth between London and Belgium. When I got to London, my expectations were I'm going to look for a job, right? I find a restaurant job or something of the sorts, and take my time, see to what extent I can actually find any League of Legends or Overwatch still at the time gigs. And if I don't find anything, I'm just going to work, finish a year in London, go back and get a job as a legal intern. But instead, we got to do Belong Arena Clash, which was a really, really cool event. Amazing people. Everyone that I've worked with over there were stellar. I got to do Insomnia 64. Also got invited to be on the UKLC, which was the UK ERL at the time. Now, of course, the second division, the one underneath the NLC, which is the main one that feeds into EU Masters. And that was for me where I think it became even more serious, right? Because up until that point, I still put a lot of work in, but the shows that I had didn't really reflect the effort that I had to put in. And with ESL Proximus, with Belong, with UKLC, I became much more motivated to just keep going. And that's also, I was able to sustain myself off that, right? It wasn't a lot, but just the fact that I could just do that and stream a little bit on the side and make enough of a living to not starve. When I came back to the Benelux, there was another season of ESL Proximus that was really, really fun as well. Yet again, got the opportunity to work with Shocks, who will be familiar to anyone who watches any League of Legends. That was also, I think that was also something that I kind of glossed over initially, but like that was the first ESL Proximus. Like I said, it was a really big show for me. And it was also the first time I got to work with someone whose work ethic and level of professionality and just all around, both ease of working and just pleasant to be around person that I've had the opportunity of working with in Asia. Yeah, that was mind-blowing, right? Because I started out as a hobby and I was casting with someone I'd watched at Worlds year after year. So I had come back from London a couple of months. I've done ESL Proximus, I've done Gameforce Masters, which is a really cool like tournament. It takes like a couple of weeks, but it's not like a league, right? It's still like very much a kind of a one-off thing every year. And then at the end of 2019, we got the confirmation that Meta at the time still for Entertainment, I think, and they had acquired the ERL for the Dutch and the Belgian league. And that was the point where I was fairly certain that no matter what happens in terms of like ERL performances, if I ever get EUM, if I can ever make it out of the Benelux, this is going to be, for me at least, provide so much more stability. It was basically set in stone. I was going to do the entire year. I was going to be able to fully commit myself to doing 3 shows a week, both as a play-by-play and as a colorcaster. There was a lot more creative freedom involved. The production on those leagues is absolutely stellar. The rest of the talent was amazing as well. When I was at UKLC, I was still very green, in my opinion at least. And I always felt like I was kind of lagging behind the rest, because when you're next to people like Scoundrel and Orcs and Hiprain, all of which are either way more experienced or just really high level casters, it's hard to kind of keep up. But as the Dutch and the Belgian league progressed, I got to do way more leading, like of the shows. So I have more of a host role as well, because we didn't have a desk, so you'd be like host and play-by-play, or host and caller simultaneously. Got to do way more different content ideas, and just the fact that you're casting 2 days a week and also doing talk show every week, it just really solidified one, that I wanted to work here, and two, that the freelance jump kind of had paid off. But if I'm being completely honest, there was a part of me that was kind of unsure of whether I could do just the Dutch and Belgian league indefinitely. Yeah, without the Dutch and Belgian league, it would have been a very, very different trajectory. Not necessarily because I feel like it was, I mean, it helped, but it wasn't just the fact that I could do those shows and keep practicing, but it's also the security, the financial security that it provided me with. I knew I was a high priority for Meta because they really believed in my capability and my ability to, keep providing them with the highest level of casting, provided that I could keep working in it. And then I got the call to do EU Masters, which was mind-blowing because I hadn't really expected. It was pretty close to the event as well. And that was also, up until that point, like the craziest thing I'd done. I got to go to the LEC studios, right? I got to see the stage. I got to work with all the people there. It was a whole new level of show that I hadn't really experienced up until that point yet. I was also a lot more nervous, which I hadn't been for a long time during cast. I think the last time I was really nervous was with when I first did my first UKLC cast. It wasn't just that it was like an LEC, it was in the LEC studios. It was, it's also you get introduced to a whole new audience because at this point the Benelux, like they knew who I were, right? I've been there for years. But when you do your masters, you are suddenly thrown into a really deep pool of super enthusiastic fans from regions that, like realistically you can't keep up with. I think it's like heartwarming to see because there's so many different fandoms, so many different stories that you have within European League of Legends. I got asked for like the first couple of weeks, and then I didn't know if I would even be back for the second rotation, let alone an actual quarterfinal. So being able to do a first EUM and then get to the quarterfinals as well was a huge honor, and I'm really happy I got to get that opportunity. Yeah, and then the next step will be LCK, which was quite the story as well, honestly. So there was a job application, and then I applied, and then I got the job. Yeah, that's. I mean, that yeah. Usually in esports, you get asked, right? Like someone just calls you or sends you a DM or a message on Discord or Twitter, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to cast for us?" And you're like, "Yes, please. I would very much like that." But here there was a job opening, and then I applied to the job opening, and there were multiple rounds, and then we got through the rounds, and here we are. So the first round was more casting oriented, and it was very short, very, very punchy. And I felt like I did not do well. I was sitting there sweating in my suit at like 9 a.m, and then it was delayed by a little bit, which was, understandable, but did feed into my already existent anxiety. And I felt like I was nerve laughing a lot as well. I was just like, I turned to my girlfriend and I was like, that was so bad. Like, that was great. I got to cast with Atlas. That was super cool. I got to meet the production team. I'm already happy. We sprinted it. 0-3 in promos. And the story. Not happening. But that's how it felt to me. But I gotta say, the people in my direct vicinity who I told about it, mainly my parents and my girlfriend, were like, "No, you're being an idiot. You're gonna get this. You absolute dummy." It's such an honor and such a step to get the faith from everyone that works on LCK Global to be chosen. And like I said, I feel like it's not really gonna hit me fully until I'm there. Like actually there, like sitting in the studio, and then they'll be like, "Oh, wait, hold up." Yeah. Even as someone who is from Europe, there is no region I have cared as much about as the LCK, and there's no region I would rather be in. As I've gotten older and more experienced, I've kind of gotten to accept that you will have bad casts, right? Like sometimes you don't hit the beats, the energy's not there. And I would not have been able to kind of take a bad cast and just shake it off, get into the next one fresh, and then do very well. And that's probably the thing I'm happiest about, is that, and I'm not going to be able to do with the LCK. If I ever if I ever mess up an LCK cast, I'm going to be pure panic, at least for the first month. But that is something that I am that's like my main takeaway, is that even if you're trying to be the best, remember to be nice to yourself, because generally other people will be nice to us and then we won't be, and we will like fairly miserable. Don't do that. I did that for a long time and it's not really necessary or good. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed a little, I say a little, it was fairly long, look into the journey that I've been through, and hopefully you'll be a little more informed about who this rando that is going to come in and cast the LCK this year is going to be. Hopefully see you on the LCK broadcast soon. Can I do shoutouts? Cool. Listen to Carly Rae Jepsen. Emotion is one of the greatest pop albums ever written. Watch BoJack Horseman. It's great. Just watch it. It's really good. That's it. Yeah, a shout out to the Benelux and everyone I've worked with in the last 4 years. Yeah. That's it. I don't know any more shout outs.